Hey, everybody, and welcome to News, Games, and More, a Monday edition. Another big week of gaming news for you. And I'm Michael here with Sydney, Destin, and Jonathan. Thanks so much for joining me, friends. First things first, our headline story. Everyone's talking about it on all my social spheres. Spider-Man coming to Marvel's Avengers as a PlayStation exclusive, no less. I'll be honest, we meet half an hour before the show starts rolling, and we've already said a fair number of words on this.
We did the show. It's fine.
That's right. Jonathan, you spoke up, so you volunteered. And I know you've actually, you were involved with our IGN first on this game, right? So you've had some experience with the game. What are your thoughts on this revelation?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting one. So right now we know, and obviously if you hear any anger from my dog, he's upset about the console exclusivity below me. Basically what we know right now is that next year at some point, Spider-Man will be console exclusive to PS4 and PS5 players. They have not said, people have asked for comment and clarification. Square is not saying if this is a timed exclusivity thing, sort of like Destiny content in the past or Call of Duty exclusives this generation on PS4. So right now, all we know is that if you want to play a Spider-Man in Marvel's Avengers next year, you have to buy this game on PlayStation. And right now, as far as we know, every other DLC character is going to be available across all platforms. So if you play on Xbox or PC or PlayStation, you'll be able to get any of the other future characters right now, as far as we know. The base game has all of the main characters in it, so there's no one exclusive at launch or anything like that. But it's a weird situation. I get it from a business level. Like, I so understand why this type of deal has happened, and I think it makes so much business sense on a number of levels. And I'm going to play this game on PlayStation already, so I just know I'm definitely going to be playing on PlayStation. But it brings up this weird question of how important then is he as a DLC character to this game, because they've made such a big deal about the post-launch life of this game being really key to what this game is. Does that mean the other post-launch characters won't really matter as much? Will Spider-Man not matter? Like, it brings all of these questions up for me that kind of make me a little concerned about where the future of this game goes.
Right, and certainly opens the door to future deals struck in this way and makes you wonder if this is the beginning of a trend. This also comes in the wake of the Miles Morales thing being hotly debated, whether it's a DLC and add-on, to Marvel's Spider-Man. Sydney, you said you were willing to play devil's advocate on this. I'm going to ask you to do that now. Do you think this will move the needle for people?
To play devil's advocate. Well, wait, which way am I advocating?
For Sony.
For Sony.
This is good.
Well, okay, I think, Jonathan's dog is anti-exclusivity, so you'd be talking about why this is a great idea.
I feel like, Dornbush, your explanation felt pretty even-keeled in terms of, we don't know, like, yeah, it's a bummer. Xbox owners, you can't play Spider-Man. Like, maybe he's not even that cool. For all we know, you didn't play the exclusive on PlayStation, so, like, maybe you just were missing out on a lot. I mean, I include myself. I'm a big Xbox person. But in all seriousness, like, I think who knows how much Spider-Man contributes to the game. While it can be a huge bummer to fans of Spider-Man to not be able to play him, I would assume that it's not meaning that if you pick up this game and play it, you're only getting 75% of the game, right? Like, I would assume that you can still wholeheartedly sink your teeth into this and enjoy it. But the other side of it is that there's always been exclusives. Back when Call of Duty was aligned with Xbox, like, we got maps before PlayStation did, and now on PlayStation has different exclusives or gets updates first, etc., for a number of things, including Destiny, Call of Duty. So I don't think I mean, Destin, we were just talking about, what was it, the Hawkeye? What? Not
Hawkmoon.
Thank you,
yeah.
Hawkeye.
He's the first DLC character.
Hawkeye's in Avengers.
You see, kids, back in the Destiny days.
So while it is a bummer, and personally, I'm kind of salty about it, I can see that other side of it that, like, okay, like, let's take a deep breath. It's maybe not as egregious as it looks on first sight.
Maybe, but by the same token, I'll just say this worked exactly as intended on me. This is a game I probably wasn't going to pick up, and now I probably am, because Spider-Man just happens to be my all-time, like, my boy, and I have to now. It's compulsory. They got me. And I feel like the unique thing about the Avengers, right, is going to be each individual combat style and moveset. So I'll just say I, for one, would feel that missing aspect, that it's like, Right, but Spider-Man brings a whole different a different way of traversal and a different move set to the equation.
And a big thing
yeah.
for this game after launch is the whole thing that they're going to be introducing new story content when new characters come in and new locations and have like essentially comic book style storytelling in a game. And theoretically, like if Spider-Man is only available in some people's version of the game, either Square Enix needs to keep up two versions of the game, one for Xbox and PC and one for PS4, or that content is kind of siloed off. Or at least
they're gonna code Spider-Man on every platform, Dorno, and then they're just gonna lock him out on PC and Xbox. Of course, that's what they're gonna do. that's what they always do, right? They do like the whole, you gotta pay to unlock this character, or well, this character is free on Sony. Maybe in a year the exclusivity window's up. We'll see. It does sound like it is going to be forever exclusive to Sony, though.
That was the impression I was getting. We don't know for sure though, right?
We don't know
anything in the future can happen.
Maybe in the future.
They never answer, but here's their exact quote. We can't wait for you to add Spider-Man to your Marvel's Avengers roster in early 2021. As we promised before, he will be available at no additional cost to owners of the base game exclusively on PlayStation. Now, No Man's Sky was also a PlayStation exclusive that like went wide, so I think time will tell what ends up happening with Spider-Man. With the Sony licensing stuff that's all tied up with Spider-Man, it seems like they definitely have a little bit more muscle in keeping him a PlayStation exclusive. Dornan, do you know anything about that angle?
So yeah, it's a weird thing, and there's been a lot of conversation about it today. As far as we publicly officially know from these companies, Sony holds the film rights to Spider-Man. Everything else is essentially held by Marvel. And so that's why like Spider-Man can appear in Ultimate Alliance 3 on Switch, or Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, which is multi-platform, because Sony's more focused on the film rights. But that said, obviously Sony Pictures and PlayStation are part of the larger Sony company. So the two of them both kind of capitalizing on and monopolizing Spider-Man as something associated with Sony only benefits both sides of the company. So even if they're separate deals, I would not be surprised if that, like ingrained kind of idea that Spider-Man is associated with Sony, probably led to at least some of this deal possibly happening. Like I would not be surprised if that helped influence the conversation.
Much to chat's happiness, I will definitely be the one that says I hate this. I'm not happy about this. And, I wanted to play on PC. I like the additional frame rate, and I can scale up as technology, gets more powerful. And it's just a bummer. Now I feel like I do have to play on PlayStation. Their strategy is definitely going to work. They're going to move more units on Sony. So from a business perspective, I totally get where Sony's coming from. It's really good. This just sucks for the consumer. I have to play on a platform I would rather have had the option of playing on PC, and I don't like that. So that's the long and short of it. Do I want to play on PlayStation 5? Not really. I wanted to play on PC. Now I don't get that option. Great.
Yeah, if you have the option between consoles or PC, like there's no reason to not get it on PS5 now, which is again good for Sony. But if you don't have that option, then you're left thinking, oh man, arguably the biggest Marvel character may never come to my game, and I just don't get to experience that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that like pro-consumer, anti-consumer sounds very aggressive, but for my analysis, pro-consumer, anti-consumer is really interesting because like from my perspective, and I know this makes it sound like I'm like a really big fangirl and like, boo, Sony, I have a PlayStation. I love my PlayStation. It's great. But I am really, it has been very interesting to see going into this console generation, how Microsoft has been making so many moves of like pro-consumer, like they have Game Pass, they're like backwards compatibility, like we want to make this easy, like things day and date on PC and Xbox, like just feels like they're making a lot of moves. Granted, they have a lot of ground to cover, like to make up for going into this console generation. But it's interesting to see like, I know I was playing devil's advocate, but like this is not a good move for consumers. And it's fascinating to me to see is Sony is not aware of that perception, or if they're thinking we're just going to keep putting out games with incredible storytelling and people are still going to buy them. Like we're so far ahead in consumers' perceptions of PlayStation that like we don't need to worry about pissing them off.
Right. I imagine if you're trying to make maximum profit, you balance these things out, right? You'll accept a PR ding if you realize it will work, though. It will move X amount of units. We have Y amount of goodwill that we can burn through before. What are they not going to get the next God of War Horizon Zero Dawn? What are they going to do? They need us. I do get a little bit of that attitude just from the way Sony's PR thing has been playing out so far.
The craziest thing that I see is like these reactions in chat that are overwhelmingly toxic. It's just why is this like a win that you're just being like that for? I don't get that. Like, oh, the mega billion-dollar corporation that's already the biggest in the business now gets another $1 billion. Go team. Like,
Craven capitalism selected
just,
my team this time.
It
yeah,
feels so 1990s, and I can't believe we're still there. And hey, everybody in chat, yeah, I don't like it. I think it's weird. I didn't like this when Destiny did it, and it was PlayStation exclusives because it fractures the community. Now, if this was cross save, okay, great. Yeah, I'll just take my save on PlayStation, try out Spider-Man if I want to. That would seem a little less egregious, but no, you're locked into the Sony platform. You're not going to have any of your cross progression on your characters or anything. You would have to start a whole new character unless they announce some sort of cross save or something like Destiny has had for the last year.
All right. Well, speaking of Sony's sort of PR rollout and the next gen, gap that's upon us, let's actually move on to our second story because in keeping, I think, with this very strictly curated information that we've seen Sony drip out as sort of like the prestige brand, is the tactful way I'll say it. We have found out that the next Sony State of Play conference is coming on August 6th, 2020 at 1 p.m. Pacific, in case you want to mark that down. But you, of course, can reference the date at any time on IGN.com. We'll have, quote, no big PS5 announcements. And I actually want to read this quote because I know that it's just dry business language, but it does come off harsh to me. They said, there will be no PlayStation Studios updates in Thursday's episode. There won't be any updates around hardware, business, pre-orders, or dates either. It's just I think they're trying to get ahead of so don't get disappointed. We don't want the Halo Infinite effect. We're telling you what we're not going to do. But at the same time, it just continues this trend of, and I think this scuttlebutt around our Slack channels and Zoom meetings today has been, we're reaching a fatigue level, right? We're only months out from the potential launch of these systems. Who's going to break first and just give us all the information, like how much it's going to cost and things like this? I know people have a lot to say about this. Anyone jump in?
Oh, about the thing? That's great. Tell us how much your damn consoles are. Anyone. Sony.
Well, I mean,
Microsoft.
Are you excited for the State of Play conference, or does this dim? I mean,
I'm always excited to see new games, regardless of the platform. Like, that's good. Can't wait to see what exclusive characters they're going to get to only their platform and nowhere else.
You're right. Can I say something really quick?
I'm just egging on chat, actually.
I'm trying to get people to say things, please.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's jumping back, but then I'll comment on the story too. But I'm not looking at chat because it's too distracting for me. But if there is toxicity in the chat in terms of us being like, hey, that's like Spider-Man being exclusive to PlayStation, that's lame. Like, I'm going to take a bet. All of us have both of the consoles, access to it. I mean, you could play it in the office if you want. Like, we are not the people affected by that exclusivity. When I think about it, I think about my brother who loves video games. I think about my dad who loves video games, and both of them happen to love Spider-Man, and they don't have PlayStations. And I guess I don't understand the toxicity around it because ultimately we're not affected on it. We're just commenting on our thoughts.
Well, and the millions, yeah. I think that speaks to the price point thing. That's a big sticking one for me, just because I'm extremely privileged, and because of this job, I will have to and get both consoles. But there are a lot of people who need to know this price point because it is a big enough line item in their budget, in their life, that they're thinking about it now. So it's just weird to me that we have this game of chicken going, as someone described in comments. Yeah.
So sorry to continue talking.
No, go ahead.
Because I have words to say. I agree. I think that it's good, I guess, since they're not planning on saying anything, to get ahead of it. Be transparent be transparent about this, that we're not going to get any PlayStation news. In terms of what they're actually going to be talking about, like third party and indie games. What was the cat one? Stray. I hope we see more about Stray. I really was excited about it. It's the cat with the backpack. But like the weird thing is there's not very many big third party games that feel like they're on the table, because Cyberpunk has Night City Wire, all of Ubi's stuff. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Watch Dogs, they both have Ubi Forward, which is there will be more in the future. And so that leaves us with Squadrons, and I'm missing one. Squadrons and does anybody? Well, at least it was with Squadrons. And
no, you did great. I'm not going to be able to pull that out of my head. No.
There's Crash Bandicoot and Tony Hawk also.
Okay, there we go.
But the big question mark is there not going to be a new Call of Duty this fall to go along with the new
Call of Duty?
I mean, this is the latest in the year when we haven't heard about a new Call of Duty, I think because of how successful Warzone was and them wanting to put focus on that. But we have not heard about a new Call of Duty, and theoretically they would want to sell you a new Call of Duty alongside the new consoles, I would think. So
it does seem like they are generally trying to extend the life of the PS4, and they are succeeding very well at that. Like, I'm surprised how much at this late in the game I still like respect my PS4 and the things that it can still do, and I still expect for it to bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, they have 100 million plus people who own a PS4. You don't want to just immediately abandon and forget about that, because they're going to be a good source of making money for at least a couple more years. And so I get why they want to focus on that. And the language actually about like not having PS5 games, I think it's this weird combination of both the game of chicken that's happening between Microsoft and PlayStation, but also because State of Play kind of from the beginning has had this weird misconception of, they announced State of Play, and had it I think it was early last year. And the first one was primarily PSVR games. And so a lot of people tuned in being like, oh, new PS4 games, maybe PS5 news, I'm going to get to hear so much. And then it's mostly focused on a thing that, as much as I love PSVR, is only owned by, a 20th of the PS4 install base. It has like 5 or 6 million units sold. So it's one of those things where I think they've had to deal with misperceived conceptions of what's going to be in a State of Play every single time. And so that's why you get something so explicit as that. But yeah, when we are, conceivably 3-ish months from when we think these consoles are going to launch, to not know how much it's going to cost, what the launch lineup may look like, any of that is just, it's wild.
And you have to imagine some of that off the railsness is because of the pandemic and stay at home orders, but they're both companies are very close to the vest about I don't want to say not admitting that, but not spelling out in detail, yes, we were delayed here, and this didn't happen as we intended because of this. They just want to project confidence. So it makes you wonder what it's like behind the scenes. It's wild times to launch a console. It really is. Destin, you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, to your earlier point, I just kind of wanted to bolster it and say people need to budget for these consoles. I think they're waiting for Gamescom to reveal the price, but that just seems like totally arbitrary in the current world situation we're in. Just say the price.
I think more than anything, they're waiting for each other.
Yeah, you think they're still playing like gun shy, basically? You go first,
bit.
Me?
I mean, the weird thing
we're
is...
trying to undercut each other? Sorry,
you're good. The last few generations, obviously, we have heard about stuff relatively earlier than we have now, but we did not know the Switch price or launch lineup until January, and it launched in March. Most iPhones get announced and then they're available within a month or so. Like there is a trend, at least for technology, high end or higher price technology, to have a shorter window than the last time a major console generation launched. So there is somewhat of a precedence, but as you all have been saying, like these are extraordinary times, and there are tens of millions of people in the US alone who are out of jobs. And probably a chunk of them were thinking of buying new consoles this fall, and now don't know if they'll have the money to, or how much it's going to cost them to.
This does seem like excellent fodder, by the way, for next gen console watch, which Dorno, you're on, right? Yeah, with
promo.
Ryan and Damon. So, and the best part is I'm not on it, so chat will love it. So,
yeah. Every Friday morning, you can look forward to Not Destin.
Yeah. You can check me out. I just cry for an hour every Tuesday and Thursday at 8.
Oh, and they hate it.
It's
very unpopular.
They hate it.
It's a great
No, but like you're totally right, Torno. I didn't even consider that. Like Nintendo waited 2 months That just
Yeah.
seems so close to me.
They had
These
that
consoles are going to
January
be $600-700. This is a big investment for a lot of people.
That's so much money. Why is that so much money?
Is there a particular
Yeah.
reason that anyone on the show today happens to know off the top of their head that the consoles intentionally launch simultaneously in competition with each other? Is it that the rivalry drives up sales? Because in the film world, right, blockbusters will sort of shift to make room for each other. Why so close? And that goes back to the day I was born. Like every console generation, they seem to, or at least two of the big ones, drop at the same time. And it's kind of unique that the Switch popped in mid-generation. Why the generational system? Do we
I'd
know?
love to guess before Dorno tells us the
Yeah.
real answer, but
Go ahead.
Black Friday would be my guess. That's probably why they launch close.
Mm.
It's definitely a reason why they both would want to launch before the end of November, absolutely. But in terms of like, most likely weeks apart, as was the case last generation, the generation before, the 360 had a year head start.
Oh, there
on the
you go.
PS3. And as silly as it can be sometimes to think, like an average consumer is not probably going to a store and being like, oh, they have a higher sales so far, so I should buy that one. But like momentum really does matter. There's a lot of talk often about, the first console every generation to 10 million, because having that generation, having that install base, and having those wins to boast about early on can really affect the marketing cycles. And so you don't want to give the competitor too much of an edge in timing, because that could spell certain doom. And there were a lot of other problems when it came to the PS3 launch. Like the year gap is not the only thing, but that does play a role, and the momentum does really play a role. And the Switch was able to find such unique momentum, one, because the Wii U was such a failure on a sales level, but because it didn't have direct competition going up against it. Like it did get to own that space and did get to drive forward on its own.
And just to add to that, I would guess that, like, anecdotally with the 360, if it has that year and let's say you're coming up, do I get a PS3? Do I get a 360? And all of your friends have 360s because they bought into the console generation earlier. Like, I'm going to get what my friends got. And I think with the rise of multiplayer games, like, I know for sure that's why I play on PC now, is because all of my friends with poor taste went to PC. I said it. Console is more relaxing. I said it.
I agree.
I agree. It's
and
more chill to
yep.
play on the couch. Yeah.
It is, but
Yeah,
I
sure.
also recently started buying almost every game on PC for the connectivity aspect. Absolutely. What a fascinating answer.
Well,
this is a good
Wait.
show.
I
Go
think
ahead.
we're going to transition. I had another thought, though. Do you think they're also playing chicken with the date, Dorno?
I think so.
A little bit. I mean, like, there's only so much of a window they can go at the
Play
end of the
with,
day.
yeah.
You do have to consider physical manufacturing and distribution of these consoles, so that will come into play. But I absolutely think they're playing chicken on both price and date.
How does
I
this
wouldn't-
end? Who
Go
breaks?
ahead. What? Oh yeah, who breaks?
Gamescom. Whoever's first
Watch
at
here.
Gamescom. Do we have a schedule?
Do you think
No.
they're waiting for
My-
Gamescom, or do you think that it's like Xbox? Let's say Microsoft gives a price, and then the next day Sony's like, "Oh yeah, us too," or like.
And you don't think
It'll
they
be
do
like
it at their own
during. It'll be like
conference?
an hour after the other one. Sorry.
Well, I was just saying, I think it would be during their own, right? Like a state of play conference. But you're saying you think it'll be nested within Gamescom, within that window?
For me, just the industry, the way it's gone, Xbox announced the Xbox One X during Gamescom, and I think that's probably their drop dead date. So we'll see. I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
I think
Absolutely guessing.
I think Xbox will go first. If they're both pushed to the limit, the absolute limit, I think Xbox will go first and then Sony after, even though I think Xbox is going to try to have the lowest price, even if it is with the lower tier alleged console that they still haven't announced. But I do think they're going to try in some way to undercut Sony, even if they have to go out first and just hope they're undercutting Sony.
Honestly, it would be odd to me if the PS5 was cheaper, even though I understand on paper there's some argument for why it might be, but it would be like if Grey Poupon was cheaper than the regular mustard. It's anti their brand. I don't understand why they would try to undercut as much as just pin that price point, because they're already prestige, and they silo. Like, I actually wasn't going to transition. I was going to bring up the little story we had earlier in the day that they also said the DualShock 4 will work with the PS5, but only for supported PS4 backwards compatibility games. It won't work on PS5 games. And that comports with like basically what they've said multiple times is they consider these discrete experiences, and they're going to continue supporting the 4, but the 5 is a new thing, and you should have all the benefits of the new technology, and that includes the controller. But at the same time, I mean, that's another cost, is your new controller. So
But 4 to 5
I don't see them as
hours of more
shying
battery
away.
life, buddy.
That's true. But I don't see them shying away from price. I guess I wonder why they're scared to announce a price when I feel like we would expect them to be the more expensive console. Does anyone think they're going to try and reverse that trend and undercut Xbox?
I mean, the PS4 was cheaper than the Xbox One at launch. It was $400 for the PS4 to $500 for the Xbox One. I think the answer to your question, even though we don't have numbers, lies in the actual surprise that PlayStation is going to have 2 versions of the PS5, the digital edition and the disc edition, whatever they want to call it. I think the digital edition is there to slightly undercut probably whatever the Series X price is going to be. Even the PS5 will either probably be comparable or maybe even more expensive. I don't think it will be, but I think the digital edition is there to help get a lower entry price point so they can boast something cheaper than the actual PS5 base model is.
So
Gotcha.
going to Xbox though, sorry, while you were saying that, I had a thought. So there's rumors that Xbox Series S, which like, come on, these naming conventions are so confusing for me. The Xbox Series S, which is Project Lockhart, and it's supposed to be like the kind of scaled back version of this next generation Microsoft console, is rumored to be talked about in the August Xbox event. And I'm curious, do they have to give us a price of at least that console at that event? Because it would be weird, because the whole selling point of this isn't, hey, look, you can buy a console that doesn't do as much as the other console. It's, hey, look, you can buy a console, still get a great experience, and it will be this price.
And here's the price point. It almost doesn't make sense without a price point. Yeah, you have to.
So I'm curious, like, would they start there by giving us the price point of their lower console versus telling us the price point of the Xbox Series X?
Marketing wise, they might be able to sort of make it seem like their entry point pricing is lower. You know, our first entry point is $50 cheaper than the Sony brand. You know, they could do something sort of cheeky like that.
Kind of like starting at
$399.
I mean, it's not good. It's gonna be.
They're just going to release price points in reference to each other's. They're like, our price point is Xbox is minus $50.
Oh God!
No. Yeah.
This is all a conspiracy. That like all of the teachers got together to try and get people to learn more math, and so that's how you uncover.
Oh, I mean, speaking of the toxicity in chat, like, do you think rich executives at Sony and Microsoft hate each other? Nah, they're all counting their money together, high five, and being friends.
At the private islands.
Yeah. I do want to move us along, but that was a great chat. Speaking of consoles that we can't get and it tortures us inside, the Analog Pocket sold out in 15 minutes, you guys. And they have announced the things you'd expect, that they said, quote, "This is certainly not a typical product launch. Things have been made difficult by coronavirus, but of course, they want to make as much money as they can, and they'll be making more as quickly as they can." But I was not aware of the Analog Pocket, so I obviously missed the window. Now that I know what it is, I really, really want one. It is we called it the stylish third-party handheld console coming in 2021, and it runs, what's the full roster? It runs 3 different generations of Game Boy, but other things as well, I think, with various add-ons.
I didn't know what so here was my learning about this story. Altano tweeted about it today and how I think he got one. And then I'm like, ooh. Yeah, I was like, what the hell is this thing? So I started reading about it, and then I saw the video that we're playing right now. It's B-roll, and I was like, oh my God, I want it. And
I want it so bad now.
Yeah, it's so slick. It looks so good.
Yeah, here, I'll speak on this. Sorry, Dornbush, gonna steamroll you for a second because I'm pissed about this. So I wanted one. I was planning on getting one. I had it in my cart, and I did not get one. And it's just, these types of launches just kill me. I don't know why I do this, because it happens with sneakers all the time, where you have it in your cart, you think you got it, you're going through the checkout process, and then once you hit like, okay, I'm ready, boom, it's like, sorry, the items in your cart have been sold. And that's exactly what happened. And I like have nothing further to say on that, except for this is like such a cool product, and it pains me so much to know that not only because this was just a pre-order, it's not coming out until I think May 2021. And that's if everything stays on schedule. But so I know I'm not going to have it May 2021. I'm going to have to wait after that. And it's all because I didn't click that stupid button quick enough because their shipping was so slow.
That was a very common sentiment in comments. Yeah, Fade said, I got to the final confirmed payment and I hit it and I backed out. I think Big Sam 4 had the right attitude. Until they find a way to efficiently take my money, I'll just keep it. It's all good. Like, I can't get too salty. I just found out this thing exists. It's baller. So, like, whenever everyone is done buying theirs, I'll pick one up. Definitely. I'm really into it. I saw our CEO Pear also tried and failed, I believe.
Yeah.
Dorno, did you try to get an analog? Would you?
No, I didn't, because I was most surprised that apparently everyone held on to their Game Boy libraries. I don't have mine anymore, so it didn't make sense for me to buy it. I wish I had it, but I don't have them anymore. So I would buy one if I knew I could easily get a bunch of Game Boy Advance games also. But it is like an awesome looking piece of tech, like the design of it, like you were all saying. As soon as you see that video, you're like, oh, I want this now.
I want that. Yeah. But, and I am coming to you live from my parents' house this time. My DS library is downstairs in a dusty box, so I'm like tortured. Yeah, definitely want one of these.
It's that the lit screen that makes a big difference. Because I'm staring, I have all of my Game Boys up on a wall right here. And the ones that I like playing the most, I have to use the little USB light that goes on the top.
Yep. I remember there was an official branded Mario Nintendo one for the OG Game Boy, so you could play at night. Just literally a big honking light that would graft onto your Game Boy.
Oh, man.
All right. The kids don't care about that. Let's move on. The Microsoft Store has been redesigned, so the slow trickle of information continues, but it's a simple and straightforward, but I think important story, especially because the Nintendo eShop is constantly the bane of my existence. So I appreciate when companies actually put some thought into the store. It was shown off on the Xbox Wire blog. It's a complete redesign, including front end and back end stuff. They claim it should be twice as fast to load, easier to search, and safer. It also includes, I was just going to run down the featers. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
It's way faster, way faster, and it's much decluttered. The current store is like really cluttered up, like it auto plays videos and stuff like that. Major Nelson booted it up cold and it loaded in about a second, which was pretty impressive based on their current technology or whatever. So they've done a lot on the back end. Just to sort of elaborate on the back end stuff, they've like basically recoded the whole thing. So if you boot it cold, it's about 2 seconds, and it's instantaneous if you've already loaded any of the assets. So that's some good stuff. It needed it. It really needed it.
Yeah, Failtroll says this store has needed help for a while. Pretty stoked for this. The one thing that stood out to me was that it will now only be usable if users are signed in. It's doing the Netflix route, is where they say it's you can create a chat, one for your kid, and they won't be able to access the rest of the content. But did you find that an annoyance at all? I assume you're always signed in at this point, but it's a subtle way to like continue getting everyone into their ecosystem, I think.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't. That's fine. I usually sign into my account anyway. It's either my account or the IGN account, right? So
maybe I'm a creep. I like the ability to anonymously use services.
You have to sign in to buy anything. So like you can look at stuff in the store, sure, but you can't do anything. You have to sign into your account and then buy it to associate it with that account. So it just seems sort of like a waste of time or something. I don't know.
For sure.
What is safer about it? Is it just like that your data is more secure?
That's right. They also highlighted that it's safer, but it didn't elaborate as far as I can tell. I'm going to assume I'm less chance of your account being hacked, but I don't know the details on how they achieve that.
But wouldn't the hackers be upset that they need a new, like that they have to be signed in? So then they're going to be encouraged to steal everyone else's account so that they can sign in.
You're evil, Sid. You're thinking like a hacker. Thinking like a bad hacker. Maybe. Time will tell. It's not out of the realm of possibility that in a year's time we'll hear there's a huge data breach. They happen. They are a new part of life.
I'm also not wishing
yeah.
a data breach upon Xbox because
no
they have
jinx.
so much of my information, like all my credit cards since I was old enough to have a credit card. So like, please
Yeah.
no.
But it looks slick. It's going to have all the bells and whistles. New navigation system can now tell you when something you're looking at is on sale, which is that's kind of a win-win. It's user facing. It actually provides a service, and I'm sure it will make them more money than they made before. That I'm okay with. That was a good maneuver.
Yeah, and one
Yeah.
other thing is like there are rumors stirring about that the Series X will have the same UI as the Xbox One, which is something I was very vocal about not being stoked on that when that
Oh
rumor
yeah. A
coming
lot of
up.
people are saying, this is the same store that we're going
So
to
that
have
this will
on.
be the same
Yeah.
store. And if this is any indication to maybe, this is the same store, but it's clearly upgraded, it's more user-friendly, it's faster. And if that same philosophy is the same UI that we're getting for Xbox Series X, like I will be happy with it. Because I just think the UI for this is just, oh my gosh, what is happening? It takes forever and it's very cluttered and I'm confused. So
And, yeah, and it crystallizes Xboxes. They're very on brand. You could say that their idea of, listen, the box is just a box. You're in Xbox land now. I think they try to remove as many barriers as they can between yourself and like their ecosystem.
I miss the Blade system. Blades for life. It's a throwback to 360 days.
360 had one of the best UIs. Let's be honest.
Pretty slick.
All right, we're talking UI, so it's time to wrap up the show, but there is a final story. As we mentioned, we name-checked earlier, Call of Duty, but Call of Duty Modern Warfare Season 5 patch incoming, and it's a biggie. This is news that we sit around and argue about whether to report, because at this point, it's no longer news that your Call of Duty patch is big. Sid is tired of talking about it on The Fix, which is a great show. You should check out, you guys. But this is unique, and I thought this was interesting because this patch will supposedly actually make the install size of the game smaller. Is that something I'm just a dummy and developers do all the time, or is that a relatively fresh approach? They're actually re-optimizing the assets, so you'll download this massive 36 gigs on PS4, although it requires 90 gigs of free space to initiate the download, and then it will like reconfigure the assets and re-optimize the hierarchy in your original install and make the overall game shrink.
Well, I don't know if you remember, Swain, but I think we talked about it on News Games and More. You had to download the whole dang game to get Warzone initially. So this is great. This is like cutting it down to like a third, because the full game is like 100 or something. Sid, you've probably talked about taking this whole journey on Fixed, right?
Oh my gosh. So I love Call of Duty. I am 2 patches behind because I am in the middle of playing 2 different big games on my PlayStation and I just can't delete anything else. It is infuriating. This is not the commentary you were asking for, but I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm even going to download it on my PC and I don't have enough space there. So from like a technical standpoint, I don't really understand. Like I get like you were saying re-optimizing assets and etc. I don't really understand why it needs 90 gigs of free space if it's ultimately only 36 gigs. I would imagine like I'm not even going to try and speculate on that.
I don't know what that means. No, me neither. I don't know why.
It means for the PlayStation to start it, for some reason you need 90 gigs of space. I don't know why, but they're going to end up shrinking it to 36.
Yeah. I know what it means. I don't know.
And it used
why.
to be like 100. Like it was insane before. Oh, I don't know. That's weird as hell. I have no idea why it's like
technology is the answer.
It feels like every single time that there is a patch, there is an accompanying story of somebody from Modern Warfare coming out and being like, "Hey, the new patch is coming. Also, like, clear your hard drives because it's going to be big." And I just am like confused who okayed this being their plan. To be honest,
I'm confused too. Okay, that they always say it that way. They always say it like sardonically, like you should be weirdly happy about it now, like, and it's big, and you're like, that's not good in this case. It's like golf. You wanna, yeah.
I know. Okay, this is a question for all of you because I feel you're a little bit more savvy in like how the tech is working together to produce the game or whatnot. But
prepare to be disappointed.
Right.
Why are these games so big? Like, I get that they're fancy and they're looking nice, and that theoretically the hard drives are also scaling. So proportionately, it's probably taking up about the same amount as like a hard drive. like Call of Duty from 2013 is taking the same proportion of memory as to the hard drives in 2013. Does that make sense? But I don't understand. It's infuriating. Why are they so big?
I do. The only thing I can say that speaks to that is I do know there's an aspect of efficiency of design, and I'm not accusing the Call of Duty team of designing inefficiently, but I know that there's such a thing as video game assets that can be identical, and in one case, if they're built efficiently enough, that's a whole branch of video game design, is getting the asset to fit and getting it to look as good as possible but as simply as possible so the computer can run it as quickly as possible. So maybe it's an issue of putting all your chips on graphical fidelity and gameplay, and your policy is we don't care how big the file gets. Or maybe Call of Duty is so spectacular, the underlying engine, that it has to be that big. But I find that a little harder to believe when there's other games that seem equally spectacular, purely from the layman user standpoint, that are, a third the size. But this story could be them getting their act together on that front, right? It sounds like this is going to shrink it tremendously. Hopefully that's the trend. Yeah.
Just in time for the next Call of Duty.
That's right. Yeah.
What are we going to do? Oh my gosh. What's going to happen when this is Warzone size and there's another Call of Duty that is just as big?
Well, hopefully they'll be a third of the size as they used to be. Hopefully this is the new normal, right?
Hopefully.
Sid's
space. I'm stressed because I'm planning on still playing Warzone and playing the new COD whenever that gets announced.
It's tough when they make that big of a game every year and you like the series, because a year is quick to fall off, honestly.
I mean, get ready for just games in general to be bigger as we go into next gen.
Sure.
Specifically talking about Warzone, I actually found a quote that answers your question, Sid, from production director Paul Haley. Originally, it was because Warzone shares progression with Modern Warfare, which means every weapon and character asset from Modern Warfare must also work in Warzone. So it's just like everything in the base game had to work in there. So it seems like it was almost duplicative. I don't know. Also, in this case, since Warzone shares progression with Modern Warfare, every weapon and character asset from multiplayer also needs to work in Warzone. Our pipeline isn't perfect, but even if it was, it's still a mountain of data to ship. And they're making
there's
it
no
smaller.
question. It's a AAA of all AAAs like game. I get that it is big. So I'll accept 36 gigs. That's not bad.
Well, I'll take 36.
Yeah, so they had a bunch of useless data in there, and it seems like they're getting rid of it, which is great.
Do you think this is a trick? I have a conspiracy. What if the game has always only been 36, but they added a bunch of other useless in there to make it bigger so that they could test? They were gatekeeping their own game. You know how there's gatekeepers for things? Well, Call of Duty was gatekeeping their own game, and they wanted to see if people were dedicated enough to delete.
They're like, you should want the game this badly, or you don't get to play it.
Exactly.
Like Sony gatekeeping Spiderman from PC players. Just kidding.
And
That's
that
not
brings
real, by
us.
the way. This is a news show, but what I just said is not real. Just to put that out there.
So we're officially off the rails, spouting nonsense, and we've come full circle. So I'm going to wrap us out.
Sounds right.
Thank you guys so much for joining me. I loved this episode. This was a great conversation. We will be back, or some combination of IGN talented experts, beautiful people. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific, with another episode of News, Games, and More. See you then.